and welcome back to Wednesday Trekyards Briefing, guys. Something a little bit different today. Stuart, what are we doing?
Today, conceptually, we're doing something that's conceptually new and kind of cool and discovery-ish looking. Look at that, it's a discovery. I discovered the discovery.
So it doesn't warp, it goes. There you go.
You gotta spin it, though. Can you spin it?
No,
don't break it. Don't even try.
It's
okay.
Good model.
Anyway, guys, today we're going to be looking at some of the... We're going to start off with the first concepts for the Discovery. There's a full orthos of the original design, and then eventually we're going to talk about all of them. But, yes, that book right there is awesome. It has them all in there. If you have the book, check it out. Follow along with us.
Yeah, it says, John Neves did dozens, but they list a few cool ones, and so, yeah, this says it's one of the earliest ones. So we're kind of using there, discussing, and seeing where this controversial ship came from. So, back in time, to early in the past. So, Stuart, this Discovery
is not at all like the first Discovery we saw at San Diego Comic-Con.
No.
So this was like early, before that one even.
I mean, this is McQuarrie's to a T, really. The top view, kind of.
Yeah, yeah, the shape of the engines for sure. But yeah, it definitely has. I know John Eves is big into like X-planes and the Air Force and stuff, and it definitely has that feel to it, which was what he was going for. That's why they're named Crossfield Class and things like that, because they're all after test pilots. So you can definitely see that inspiration here, and I don't like it on this one.
Now, obviously, we're as we have done before with Rick and Andrew Probert even and Johnny, we've looked at sketches, or those tend to be slightly further along sketches, so a bit more refinement. These are obviously early in the process, but it's obviously misproportioned. I mean, the saucer to secondary hull ratio is kind of crazy, and it doesn't flow. Although we've got the integration of the neck, that was obviously from the very start, having that feel, because the side view is pretty close. I mean, he obviously had that concept very early on.
Yeah, the profile definitely is kind of something that's stuck with this design over all its iterations. Although we do see here, we see a variant in the wing geometry. How it's, I don't know if it was meant to be a variable geometry one like the articulating one like in the Intrepid, or if it's just two different ideas that he has incorporated here. I'm not a fan of them pointing down, to be honest.
It doesn't feel in the Star Trek vein,
No. If it went up, then maybe, yes.
Which there are other concepts, and we'll get to those on a separate video. But it is worth saying, again, even the front view, that bulkiness, again, same thing. They didn't want to have a sleek bottom. It was big and bulky, and it's interesting how it is actually quite similar. You can see how it was pieces like the saucer and the nacelles, those things got swapped around. Whoever said, let's go with Ralph McQuarrie's and make it something else. I mean, there's a certain core there, but they knew the rough body.
Another thing that stands out with this is the lack of cutouts in the saucer. It's very much a standard saucer. I believe it still had the ball module in the middle.
Just much more subtle.
Yeah, and I think there was... I think I'd heard talk of different ideas for how that would work, or whether the ball would spin or whatever, which I think were later changed.
Well, I mean, I've also heard that the way the Spore drive, the way that whole technology thing came about was potentially even a post Brian Fuller concept, the whole spinning saucer and such. So look at the original concept of the Discovery, the one seen that didn't have anything spinning. And they were obviously, weren't scripting at that point because it's been announced. So if you knew the ship had to spin to make the Spore drive work, and the concept ship you show doesn't represent that, well, it's, so maybe that was a later piece, which is very essential to the design. But in this version, it certainly is close to the San Diego Comic-Con reveal. And I mean, one thing I will say, handling this one in real life and previous times, I mean, it's certainly a unique and memorable design. For mangles like this, it's super plain on the side. I mean, it's way too flat, but from when you see everything in one go angle, it's like, wow, there's so many unique things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I've got to kind of disagree with you there a little bit. I mean, the profile for me looks super sleek and super cool. Yeah, that just looks cool, but it doesn't look like a TOS ship. It looks like very.
If the nacelles were like up, it would have been so much better. Would have taken out the flatness of it.
Yeah, but I do like that side profile. But that being said, I also really like the profile view we get of the JJ prize as well. It looks awesome. But as soon as you move it a little bit, you get that proportion problem with the engines, and it just kind of falls apart. And I think that's the same with this. I do love the profile though.
Oh, obviously, I do think though having this cutout made such a difference to the shape. Having it be flat, it just feels bulky, and why? You know, I mean, we said very early on that we even said of that original Alpha Quarry when we looked at it could easily be a shuttle carrier given the raw amount of space. I mean, how would you reproportion this to feel right? You know, if you made the saucer much bigger, that would feel missly proportioned. You know, it feels like a saucer with a big warehouse on the back, which is pointy.
Well, yeah, I'm interested in finding out the directives from the studio as far as this goes. I mean, we'll eventually talk to John about that. I know they're all under gag orders right now from CBS. They still can't even talk about the early work that they did on the show. So once those are lifted, perhaps we'll have him on the show to talk about his whole design process, because that really interests me.
Yeah.
Because what was the initial purpose of this ship? Like you said, it probably didn't have a spore drive. What was, I'm sure that evolved over time as to what the ship actually was. And that definitely influences design styles. So. And
we know things like the scale got changed at the very last minute. The very, very last minute asked to rescale all the windows and such. So that was, again, you build these things with form follows function. Like I prefer overly small nacelles to overly long nacelles, because now you're saying, right, there has to be extra bonus tech in the nacelles to do what? Nothing? Oh, okay. Just really poorly designed nacelles. Whereas if they're tiny, then, okay, it's not built for spore, it's built for warp, but slow warp, because you create more interesting things by having smaller tech.
I gotta say, the shape of these nacelles on this concept one are just awful. I hate that they're smaller at the front.
Yeah, well, they're rocket ship engines.
Yeah, basically. They're like Saturn V rockets attached to the thing. And I don't know. You got the actual physical model there. I don't have it. Every time I see that ship from the top, it looks like the engines point inwards. Yeah. Do they, or is it just the angling of the nacelles and it's kind of an optical illusion? It's hard to tell.
I mean, I don't know. I'm here in real life. I don't know. I think that's meant to be straight, but yeah, it's a very strange feel. Yeah, no, I think they're meant to be straight. Yeah. I will say though that I can kind of see, the side view, and obviously we worked in 3D with a replica of the concept model. I can see how they could go from this to the concept model. They said, right, this is the core, but we'll make it better. Although the engines show this wasn't that early a step, but things like the side view with the short nacelles, very similar to the concept ship, the other one. So I can see. But yeah,
the Discovery Alpha, as we call it. I think we kind of coined that phrase.
Yeah, that made sense, and it caught on a little bit. This is clearly the let's take Macquarie's, let's sleek up the side, but it certainly hasn't come together. And the nice thing about the TOS Enterprise, it looks good from almost every angle. The Enterprise D looks good from almost every angle, and very good from some angles. The Excelsior, pretty good from some, but a little bit. The C, bit bulky, but good from many angles. The E, just beautiful. That proportionalism works really well.
I disagree with you there. The E really falls apart at a lot of angles for me.
Okay,
but that's just me.
This, I think, it hasn't got any of those. Again, super early, obviously, but it doesn't really fall into any of those. It's weird how, like Rogue One, which used Ralph McQuarrie's original concepts, a lot of them going back to an older design aesthetic to make it feel consistent. This one was so blocky and so unrefined that it makes it feel like it's age. But unlike the TOS Connie, which has a certain advancement for its age, this has a certain wow, this looks like it was designed in the 80s, where a Star Destroyer crossed with an Enterprise. It doesn't have that canon Trek feel that we then got. It was the other direction, with someone who wasn't as quite in tune with where they were going, like Matt Jeffries was, and Andrew Probert and such.
And I think with specifically those nacelle designs there, it definitely, John was trying to show that this is an older ship than the Constitution class, to fit in the timeline correctly. And then when everything got sleeked out and drawn out, and it lost that pre-TOS feel, in my opinion. This one definitely has that. It looks like something out of the Spaceflight Chronology book done by Rick Sternbach. It looks like something that would fit in there in the timeline.
I'll double back on that in a second, but I will say, if you look at the top view, it looks like, first of all, obviously the Warp Delta, I mean, that's really close, or Alice, even close with the cannons. But I think if you did add the cutout, and then made that like a secondary craft, like the Vulcan shuttle, have like a little wedge shuttle that came out, and that was like a lander. I can almost imagine the shapes working, as you said, like a really early, we're just going to put a big secondary hull, standard saucer, basic engines, we're between NX and TOS, we're bulking up, but we can't really be advanced in that. We have to go big and bulky. But we've got some function to the design. I can see that kind of working with this. But certainly not as a hero ship, or even just like a cargo ship. Like a Federation cargo ship, not civilian. Like, I can see this working really well for that, actually. And you had red facades to the end of the front of the engines, and it could actually kind of work as like a big bulky cargo ship.
Mm-hmm. Now, what are your thoughts specifically on this? Because looking at these orthos, it looks like those pylons are meant to articulate, just based on the way the orthos is laid out. And that could have been like the experimental tech, they went down, and that's how the spore drive or whatever the drive was at the time activated. I'm glad they didn't go with that necessarily, but I think that's what this initial concept was going for.
I think it was, if you look at it, it's an easy, quick sketch change. I think it was just a less look at the alternate. But yeah, there are certainly distinct lines in the top and bottom that imply it could move. I mean, yes, but I wouldn't have been good.
So again, I'm glad they changed it, but
it's early. I guess my final thought is that, boy, the side view, damn consistent. But you can see what was asked to be changed. Let's sleek out the body. Let's make it less McQuarrie. Let's remove those little side fins that stick out, and let's change engines completely. I'm assuming this is, at this point, is when they said, directly the director of no tube, no cylinder nacelles, and John's like,
oh yeah.
Huh. Although, to be fair, the side and the front views, they're rectangles. Mm-hmm. So I guess it deceives you. I guess they're rectangles.
I think they would be, But so my final thought is, you can definitely see the design influences here, like the X planes and things like that, the experimental 60s craft. You can definitely see that. I would just like to know the directives set down by the studio as to what they wanted.
Well, and Brian Fuller specifically. I mean, he was spearheading the stuff.
Yeah, and I'm sure we will get that information at some point. We do talk to John Eves, and hopefully we'll have him on eventually to do that. But in the meantime, we're just speculating here. But I'm glad it got changed from this, but I can definitely see, the end game Discovery and the beginning McQuarrie, how this is kind of that first step towards changing it from the McQuarrie design a little bit. So
this is certainly more interesting.
Yes.
And I will say my closing thought. Yeah, we've sort of said everything, but I would not have I don't know how I would have started with this challenge. Going from a not a great design, trying to make it something, I mean, I would not. This was such a challenge, and considering what the challenge was, the Discovery is quite nice. Some easy changes to make it fit in, but not envious of that challenge. So well done, John, for doing this process, and I'm really excited to see the next version or a later iteration where we moved on to. I think we're going to do that in a future episode. So I hope you guys enjoyed this look at a released sketch of the Discovery, the very, very, very pre-alpha Discovery. And if you want to support us, looking at more great shows, more great stations and escape pods and even treaties and cool things like that, you can, of course, just share the love. Stuart, do you have love for Trekyards?
I do. I have to. It's like my child. I have to love it.
And we have to share that love.
That's
Tell
right.
people, as I've said often, scream from the rooftops, watch Trekyards, and then we'll get more views and that'll mean more shows.
And click the like button to show us that you liked it and that you appreciate our work. And if you want to see more, please, by all means, hit subscribe and the bell notification icon.
And of course, Patreon and one-time donation at trekyards.com. All the financial stuff if you can support us, because we always have more things on the horizon.
That's right. So until next time, guys, and another concept or ship or whatever we're doing next, because we always do so much. I'm Captain Foley.
I am Commander Combs.
Bye, guys.
Bye.